Good afternoon. It's 4 o'clock, and I'm going to hand over to Dr. Zianda. Dr. Zianda, over to you.
Thank you very much, Renew. Good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to our webinar. This afternoon, we are going to be talking about safety amongst us as healthcare workers. And I know that oftentimes as medical doctors, we are too busy thinking about the safety of our patients, and we hardly ever think about the safety of ourselves, as well as considering the environment within which we work. So this evening, we've got two speakers, and the first speaker who will be talking to us about the crimes that are targeting healthcare workers is our very own Dr. Mhlengi Ncube, who is the head of unit for health policy and research here at SAMA. And before I hand over to him, I think that I should share a short story about safety concerns and how naive we can be as medical doctors. I remember being in a community health center and seeing patients, and a nurse told me that a patient had come in to see me. And without even asking what the patient wanted to see me about, I immediately took the patient into a consultation room and closed the door. And the patient said to me, "Doc, are you selling your car?" That's when I realized, oh no, this is not a patient. This is just a community member who was interested in buying something from me. And I immediately opened the door, and in my horror, the nurse was standing outside, and she was contemplating whether to walk in or not. And at that moment, when I told her the story, she said, "You know, Doc, I got so concerned about you because I knew this was not a patient. But the way that you were so quick to take the patient into the room, I just thought to myself, okay, I'll just be on standby in case something happened." And she said, first of all, you got inside and you closed the door. You did not even inquire about who this person was and why they had come to see you." And so, colleagues, I learned a very good lesson that day. And it is one of those small things that can contribute to our safety in the spaces that we work. Oftentimes we hear of doctors being murdered while while consulting patients. We hear of doctors being murdered while traveling, just leaving the facilities. So our two speakers will help us to increase the awareness so that we keep safe at all times. So then over to you, Dr. Ncube. You can take us through your presentation. Thank you, colleagues.
I will share my screen right now. Okay, let's go to the beginning of the presentation. Okay, thank you so much, colleagues. Well, the introduction has been done by Zianda. Thank you so much. So I can happily move to the next slide. So first, I'll start off with bragging about SAMA, because by letting you know that we are the best and the largest professional organization that represents medical doctors and advocates and supports for doctors in all aspects of their professions. And at the bottom, you can see where we get our bragging rights from. Having over 60% of the doctors in the country as our members, 20 branches, and over 100 years of existence, several legal cases won, as well as several other services that we provide to medical doctors. Speaking of the services, we do have the Doctors Coding Manual and supports doctors on all coding issues. If you're a member of SAMA and are being audited, you can always come to us. You don't need to hire a lawyer or anyone to do that for you. We are here. Those in private practice, we offer a one-stop support shop for you. There's also several committees that are within SAMA, and professional affairs does support all categories of doctors and their committees. We do stakeholder engagement, so we keep you informed of what's happening in the industry. If you have any policy challenges, you've got me to call. And we also if you are a public health medicine registrar, you can do your rotation in the best organization and your own. And very soon we'll be taking on masters, PhD, and postdoc fellows too. But back to what I'm really here to do, which is to provide an introduction to the talk that Bernadette will give us. So violence targeting healthcare workers has reached epidemic proportions in the world. And this is a concern that has been raised by the World Medical Association. And by the way, if you're a member of SAMA, you are already a member of the World Medical Association. So the level of violence that is meted on healthcare workers is disproportionate when you compare to the rest of the sectors. And there's gross underreporting. And part of the gross underreporting could be because violence targeting healthcare workers has become normalized. And yet, this is something that should not be. Given South Africa's context, we find that female healthcare workers are at a greater risk of violence. And the perpetrators, as Zee was talking about, could be anyone. At times it's patients, it could be their relatives. Very concerning is that at times it's workmates as well as supervisors. So in response to that, there's been quite a number of policies that have been framed by different institutions, from the WHO to the World Medical Association. There's different countries and regions that have done their own policies to try and curb violence targeting healthcare workers. And indeed, the South African Medical Association has developed safety guidelines for medical practitioners in South Africa. So the question then becomes, what type of crime do healthcare workers in South Africa experience? And to answer this and a few other questions, we looked for media articles in the past 11 years. And so we used a scoping review methodology to then, elicit the information on the nature of the violence, where it happens, who is worst affected, and the general trends that have occurred in relation to crimes targeting healthcare workers in South Africa. So as you see, there's lots of gunshots that have been fired at healthcare workers right across. There's been robberies, hijackings, very disturbing. There's been rape as well. And loss of life has occurred as well. And this applies to the main categories that we selected: the doctors, the nurses, as well as our EMS personnel. So when we looked at the provincial distribution of the crime, Gauteng actually had the largest number of cases that were reported, perhaps because there's more newspapers and reporters in Gauteng. Interesting enough, there was no reports from Northwest. So we don't know whether Northwest is safe or the underreporting is worse than for everyone else. But right across our the 8 other provinces, we did have quite a number of reports showing up in the last 10 years of different categories of crime targeting our healthcare workers. So then we looked at the gender distribution of the crime. And as you can see, it's almost balanced between males and females, of course, with slightly more females being victims of violence. There is cases where an entire crew was impacted, and this has happened in Mpumalanga in one of the hospitals, and mainly with the EMS services that have been attacked. In some cases, though, the reports did not specify any gender, in which case it was only 6%. We then looked at the professional distribution of the crimes targeting healthcare workers, and there was a lot more doctors that were targeted than the nurses, paramedics, as well as later on we did get something on a pharmacist and a physiotherapist. However, we were concerned from these results about the nurses because we believe this shows a gross underreporting of nurses. I mean, statistically, we have more nurses than any other, healthcare professional, and so and they also tend to interact for longer periods with patients and their relatives, and so there is an expectation that, again, the violence targeting nurses has been, it's been normalized and goes unreported. However, we do get consent as well about the number of extreme violence that is meted on doctors. We've had our own members have been killed. As recent as 2 weeks ago, we did have one member of ours who was shot at. And this is very concerning because outside the personal impact that it has, it also affects our healthcare system, as we cannot afford to lose patients because our healthcare workers have been incapacitated by crime. And then the trend as well shows that there's been more and more crime happening from as way back as 2013 to the present date. And remember, we're only almost halfway into 2024, but however, the number of cases that are reported are showing to be promising to go beyond what we've seen even in the ISD of 2024. The question becomes, what has happened to these cases? So what became of these cases? Well, police cases were opened in all of them. Of all those cases, only 2 convictions were ever reported. We're not aware if any were made but not reported. And then SAMA has also engaged multiple stakeholders for intersectoral solutions. We've spoken to Department of Health, we've spoken with the nurses, we've spoken with the emergency services, and are trying to come up with solutions that will help all healthcare workers to be safe at work. And we've also called in experts to advise on personal safety measures, and so which is why today we have Benedette who will be helping us to develop any sorts of skills and gives us hints and tips to what we can do to protect ourselves as healthcare workers. And if there's any issues that you experience, please feel free to reach out to us, whether it's safety issues or any other issues that impact you as a professional. You can contact us, and my email is there on the presentation. I think that's all from me. I needed to give much of the time to Benedette so that she can provide us with solutions to our challenge of safety. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Hlengi, Dr. Ngube, for that presentation. Colleagues, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat, and then I'll be able to pose those questions to Dr. Mhlengi at the end of Benedette's presentation. So then the next presenter is Ms. Benedette Nel-Nodia, who is the Fidelity ADT Regional Manager in the East Coast. She's got about 19 years of experience in the security industry and spends most of the time in the community, empowering people to safeguard themselves through talks and self-defense workshops. She does believe that personal safety plays a vital role in preventing ourselves to be targets in the community. So thank you very much, Benedette. Over to you. Thank you for taking the time to come and present to us.
There we go. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Can you all see me?
We can
Yes, we can see you and we can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction. As you heard, my name is Bernadette Nalnordia. I'm the East Coast Regional Manager at Fidelity ADT. Been around for quite a while, and throughout my career within the security industry, every year I seem to say I've never seen it as bad as I've seen it at the moment. And unfortunately, this year is no different. And in fact, I've noted that crime has become far more brazen, and it's a far more dangerous crimes that we are dealing with. And when we went through COVID, we saw crime changing and morphing, and it's a constant change and a constant morph. The problem is we're not changing. And people very often say to me, I don't know how you do it. How do you look every day and deal with this kind of situations and still be positive? Well, let me tell you, everyone, I'm actually the complete opposite of being the angel of doom and gloom. I am actually extremely positive, and I'm going to tell you why. Every day, I deal with different situations that have changed people's lives, whether it is a hijacking or a rape or a murder or a break-in or an armed robbery. And there's always some level where we could have maybe stopped that crime from happening. I always find like a little bit of negligence, whether it be something simple like not arming your alarm, or taking a short route through an area where there's no lights and it's dark, as a female running, or something simple like leaving doors open or windows open and making it easy for these guys to victimize us. And that's why I'm saying, let's go back to the basics. Let's go back to the basics. But unfortunately, when these devices, cell phones, came into play, our awareness went out the window. So let's look, what can we do? What are the basic things we can do to safeguard ourselves? So I'm not going to stand here and read this to you. You can read it in your own leisure. But let's start. What is my first line of defense? My first line of defense is always awareness. Awareness of what is going on around me, awareness of, and being mindful. We're not mindful. We don't live mindful. I can probably gather that many of you watching here today are already thinking of this you need to do later. And if you're a female, you need to pack lunches and you need to do all of this. And we live outside of our heads. And it's the worst thing we can do, because we're not mindful of our surroundings. And that's what puts us in trouble. If we remain aware of our surroundings, we will see danger lurking before it's too late. We need to reduce our exposure to be potentially victimized. That person that is taking that shortcut through the parking lot where there's no lights and no security guards, but it's a shortcut to your car at the hospital, and then being mugged on the way there, you must ask yourself the question, did I put myself in a risky situation? Because you did. Because you didn't want to take that extra time, which you knew would be a better option in a well-lit area where there's security guards, where you're going to be safer. Don't put yourself at risk. Criminals tend to attack when people appear to be sidetracked, which is most of the time. If you think about it, we're always constantly walking around on our cell phones. People are WhatsApping, they are making calls, they're on Teams meetings, they're doing all of these things. And when you are a predator, you must remember that you're going to take the person that looks the most unaware, because you want to get in and get out as quick as possible without being caught. So you wait for that person that's standing, talking on a cell phone and not looking around. And we forget, ladies and gentlemen, that a cell phone has got worth. Now, if you're a criminal, or even not a criminal, but you haven't eaten for 2 weeks, or you're a drug addict, you're going to do what you need to do to get your hands on the cell phone. And all of us have a cell phone, so all of us can be victimized. It's all about picking the one that is the least aware and the easiest target. So what do? We give them to our children now. Now our children are being mugged as they walk into school on their cell phones with earphones in their ears. So it's just a reminder that if you are a business person like myself and you have to take a phone call because you're on standby, like we are as well in the security industry, and you're in a public space, why not go and stand with your back against the wall? That immediately alleviates anybody coming from behind. You take your call, you say, I will phone you back. You put down the phone and you put it back in your bag or your pocket. You don't walk around flashing it either. Because I know that some of us have to take phone calls regardless of where we are, but we have to start thinking while you're on the phone, keep your eyes open. Is there somebody that's lurking that you can see? Be assertive. Always remember that criminals are predators, as I mentioned, so they prey for the one person that is not aware of their surroundings. When you are actually opening and closing your rooms, and this is something I actually met with an entire pharmacy once, and they had an armed robbery. And the whole thing was, guys, when are you at your most vulnerable is when you're opening and you're closing. So why would you have one person opening and one person closing? We have to, at our rooms, at our pharmacies, we have to have a plan. We have to remember that there's safety in numbers. So if you're opening or closing, you shouldn't just have one person that can't watch their back, because immediately they are vulnerable. So we need to do those in groups. Consider the layout of your rooms, and this is also very, very important. I mean, if you are going into, Ziana, you said you took the patient into the room. We need to look at our rooms. How is the layout planned? Do you or your patient have quick access to the door? Because if your layout is such that you can get cornered in your rooms, you have a problem. And also, if a patient is getting aggressive and wants to leave, you don't want to be between the patient and the door. You'd rather him just leave. So consider the layout of your rooms as well, and how you've proportioned it to make sure that you and your patient both have equal access to the door. Make sure that if you do have an alarm system, which I truly hope you do, that you have access to panic buttons, because there's nothing as terrible when you're in a situation if you can't get help. So placing a panic button in a strategic area, under a desk, around a wall, wherever you can get to it very quickly, at least gives you the option to know that somebody is on their way if you are being held hostage or in a situation within your rooms area. Don't get into elevators alone with somebody that makes you feel uncomfortable. And this comes back to this wonderful thing we have called our sixth sense. You know, that thing you've got, that feeling you get when something isn't right, when that person makes you feel uncomfortable, when you see a car. You know, ladies and gents, I sit in front of victims every day of my life, and I have for now almost 20 years. And I always hear the same two sentences. The first one is, I saw that person, I should have, could have, would have. Or I saw that car, I should have, could have, would have. I always hear those two sentences. So they always tell me what made them uncomfortable, and then they tell me what they should have done. So rather than should have, could have, would have, do it. If somebody makes you feel uncomfortable, I call it the gift of fear. That feeling you get, the hair on the back of your neck that stands up on your arms, that person just makes you feel, ugh, trust it. If you open a lift, and we see a lot of people getting mugged in a lift, because how much better could it get? You can't run anywhere, you're stuck inside there. So we are seeing attacks within lifts. So if you're going, perhaps you're in a hospital scenario or wherever, you get to the lift opens and there's a person inside that makes you feel uncomfortable. Trust your instincts. Trust your instincts, don't get inside. I always say to people, I'd rather be perceived as odd than dead. And it's the same when walking in the street. If you're walking in the street and somebody's coming towards you and they make you feel uncomfortable, cross the road. Don't wait till something happens and then say to me, I saw that person, I should have, could have, would have. We have to go back to basics, everyone. We've lost the basics, and that is why it's so easy for these guys to victimize us. We literally give ourselves on a plate nowadays, and we need to change that. Always let a family member, a friend, a colleague know your destination and estimate the time of arrival. Now, in the East Coast, and I know across South Africa, we've had quite a few kidnappings over the last few months, and it's a very real thing. Now, what we have is what we call a golden hour. And in that golden hour is the best time for us to find you, save you, and catch the culprit. The longer you are in your situation, the worse your chances become. So just by saying to someone, whether it is a colleague, whether it is whoever, I am quickly going out to this place, I'll be back in 20 minutes. So perhaps you're popping out to the pharmacy around the corner or whatever, and you say, I'll be back in 20 minutes. If you're not back in 20 minutes, somebody's going to start looking for you. And where are they going to start? They're going to start where you told them you're going to. So that already cuts out time. If you don't tell anybody and something happens to you between the time you leave and wherever you're going, nobody is going to start looking for you until it's too late. So we need to start communicating again, because we stopped somehow. And I think also with COVID played a very big role in that, because we were looking at each other's eyes and we weren't coming close to each other, and we stopped communicating. But we need to understand that we cannot get through this on our own. We have to help each other. It's crucial. So also in your room, something to think about, maybe when you are in your rooms or in your working environment, take a look and see if there's anything lying around that can be used as a potential weapon. If so, safeguard those, put them away. Don't leave things like that lying around, because it's the same. We're habitual, we're humans. I could possibly walk into any of your kitchens right now, open the top drawer, and I will find knives, forks and spoons. So if I wanted to break into your house and stab you, I'll know exactly where your knives are. We're creatures of habit. So we need to start thinking and changing how we do things. So make sure there's nothing lying around that can be used as a potential weapon. Always keep your doors and windows locked and your alarm armed when leaving your surgery. We've got a lot of drug addicts out there. We've got a lot of opportunists out there, some desperate people. And we are seeing an increase of break-ins at doctor surgeries all across the town and all across South Africa. So make sure that you have the correct security in place. And you also don't want to be in a situation where you come in the morning and there's a surprise for you waiting on the inside, because that is also something we see, especially if there's no alarm or the alarm wasn't on. These guys will physically wait for you to actually enter, and then it's too late. It's not often that we will get to a premises and take a walk around first and see if it's safe before we enter, which is something we should do. But if you have an alarm, that preempts it, because the alarm would have activated if anybody was breaking in. But if you don't have an alarm, I would highly suggest you first take a walk around to see if there's any point of entry. Make sure that your entrance area is well lit, especially we're going into winter now. And wherever you're going, make sure that you park close to a well-lit area, a well-lit entrance as well. Rather take a little bit longer and wait for parking and make sure that there's enough light, than actually park in a dark space and then having to enter the building and not knowing if anybody is actually hiding or has intentions somewhere along the line. Very often I see in a lot of our doctors' rooms, the doors just open, everybody just walks in, but that needs to change. You need to ensure that you've got an intercom and a gate so that your receptionist can see who's on the outside and then make an educated decision if that person should be coming in or not. A lot of riffraff that are going from surgery to surgery will do anything to gain access, and you need some kind of boundary, because remember, once that boundary is gone, it's a free for all. So let's make sure that we can see who's on the other side and we can make an educated decision to let them in. When leaving your surgeries or work, never open the car door from a long space away. Very often we've got a lot of stuff in our hands, we've got files, we've got all kinds of things, and people just bleep, bleep, and then they don't see that somebody's actually on the other side of the vehicle climbing into the back seat. Only unlock your car door when you are right next to your vehicle, when you have full peripheral vision of what's going on around your vehicle. It's too easy nowadays to just unlock and somebody can simply jump in the back seat, and then you're going to get yourself into trouble. If you see something, say something, do something. Now that is probably one of my most favorite sayings ever. If you see something, say something, do something. Don't wait for something to happen and then tell me that you saw the suspicious people and you thought something was wrong, and you, once again, I could have, would have, should have. Rather trust your instincts. If you see something, say something, do something. Contact the SAPS, contact your alarm service provider, your security, alarm everybody that something is not right there. And I can promise you that if you have a criminal that's got intent and he starts realizing people are looking at him and that he's been spotted, he might have a change of mind, because as I mentioned, these guys don't want to be seen and they don't want to, be easily caught. So they wait for the time when everybody's busy and not looking around. But the minute we start an alarm, when we start talking, I mean, everybody should have some kind of safe word in your business that all your staff know. And it's imperative, because as the minute somebody says that word, everybody goes on to high alert and realizes there's something wrong. And immediately our actions change and we become more aware. And now your criminal's going, oh dear, they're going to see me now. I'd rather just move away. So if you see something, say something, do something, report, report, report. Now, earlier we were talking, my colleagues made mention of people not reporting crime. This is a very serious subject, ladies and gentlemen, extremely serious. So I work together with the SAPS, the Metro Police, all our security role players, and I sit on monthly meetings with the SAPS, and we go through statistics. And I go through my statistics and they go through their statistics. And very often my statistics are more than their statistics, which is really scary, because ultimately people are underreporting for different reasons. First of all, they've got the attitude, well, I've got insurance, they'll repair the car seat, the car window, or, they will it's going to be too expensive to do it, so I'll just sort it out this way, or I don't want to go sit in court, or what's the other one I always hear? Oh, he's just going to get out anyway. But then we go back to complaining about the SAPS, and we're saying we're not getting service delivery. But did you know that the SAPS is allocated resources based on their statistics? And if we as a community are not reporting crime, then why are we complaining because the police has no resources? And I think everybody's getting where I'm coming from. We play a massive part in our own personal safety, not only in the way of, yes, being aware and vigilant all the time, but reporting crime gives us resources from an SAPS point of view. And it's all a big circle. And if we don't report and we don't put these criminals away, then why are we complaining that there's so many criminals running around? Yes. Obviously, the prosecuting authority drops us very often, but we still play a part, ladies and gentlemen, and we have to take up that space. We can't always complain and then not do anything about it. The dress for success, ladies, I'm not particularly saying that you need to put on heels and a dress. And gentlemen, those pointy shoes that you're wearing, remember one thing. When you are working in an environment where you know there is some kind of danger, why would you put yourself in a position to wear an outfit that you can't run in, that you can't defend yourself in? I mean, I very often speak to estate agents, and we all know estate agents are always dressed to the T. But I always say to them, if you are showing a house and you're wearing a pair of heels like this, and this guy decides, no, he's got intention, how are you going to run in those heels? And gentlemen, same with those pointy shoes, because they are also very slippery and very difficult to run in. So when I say dress for success, I'm saying dress for the environment that you're going into, so that you are able to defend yourself, so that you are able to run. And it's a simple thing, but it can save your life at the end of the day. Those pencil skirts, ladies, are not going to allow you to run very fast. But remember that when getting dressed in the morning. And as I mentioned, trust your instincts. If it's not right, if it doesn't feel right, get out. It's the most pertinent thing for us to listen to our fears to stay safe. So what do we do in a situation? Bernadette's now been talking to you. You don't believe a word she's saying. So you go and run through dark alley spaces and let funny people into your rooms. What do you do if you are in a situation? Well, if somebody has a gun and knife to your throat, there is not much you can do. And unless you're Chuck Norris, because maybe then you could find your way out. But if there's a knife to your throat, a gun to your head, the most important thing, and this is difficult to think because we all think, what am I going to do in a situation? But you've got to stay calm. You've got to stay calm, because Getting excited, you're going to get your attacker more excited, which means that it could end far worse than what if you just stay calm. So you stay calm, and as I mentioned earlier as well, the longer you remain in a situation, the worse your chances are going to become. So we want to get out, and you are not going to see your options on getting out if you are busy screaming and losing your head overall. If you are in a situation where there is no gun and there is no knife, and you're perhaps in a public space and you can scream to get attention, then by all means, scream as much as you want, scream like a banshee. But when there's a gun or a knife, it changes the situation. Be submissive and no eye contact. Now, when I talk about no eye contact, so the first thing you want to do is you want to show your hands so that you can show you've got no weapon. You lower your eye contact, because looking at somebody in the eyes could mean two things. You want to fight, or secondly, that you can recognize your attacker, which they don't want. So you raise your hands, you lower your eyesight, you let them take whatever they want. You've got a gun to your head, you've got a knife to your throat. There is no earthly belonging worth your life. Show your hands, don't make any sudden moves. Any sudden moves could be seen as you are now going for a weapon or a gun. So do exactly as you are told. And it's a difficult one because we never know what we are going to do, but this could ultimately save your life. If you can attract attention, as I mentioned, perhaps there is no gun, the person's just wrestling you for a bag, and you're in a space where you can, then attract attention as much as you can. If you see an escape, and now listen very closely, everyone. First of all, you're not going to see your escape if you're busy freaking out. That's where the staying calm comes in. But if you can see the escape, you usually only get one chance. Take it. But you must be 150% sure. I had a lady that was hijacked. She was kept in her vehicle on the passenger seat floor space, and with a gun to her head. And at some stage, the hijackers stopped at a robot. Yes, I also didn't know hijackers stopped at the robot, but they stopped at the robot, and she managed to jump out the car. And when I sat with her afterwards, and I still remember the day, and I was sitting holding her hands, and I said to her, how did you know how to jump or when to jump? And she looked me straight in the eye and she said, Bernadette, I knew if I didn't jump, I was going to die. And she followed her instincts and she saved her life. And subsequently, these guys were arrested and they were out on bail for murder. So she probably saved her own life by staying calm, seeing her escape and taking it. And she actually today can live to tell the story. Always, obviously, remember any details of your attacker, hair color, skin color, marks, clothing, vehicles, anything you can possibly remember. And very often victims say to me, their senses become so alive, so they could literally smell or taste the person. But bring that information, get it to the SAPS or to your security provider as soon as possible so we can, in our golden hour, track that person as quick as possible. Always be alert and ensure that you're aware of what is happening around you. I want you guys to go off this call today and start living a mindful life to save your life, because that's what we need to do. Get to the nearest safe place. The nearest safe place is not a little dark cookie, it's where there's people. So you go where there's people. Report, report, report as quick as possible. Remember that golden hour. I'm going to keep saying it because it's important. And then get medical attention as soon as you possibly can, especially in a scenario, and I shouldn't tell you guys this, when there's been rape that's occurred. I've had a lot of victims want to shower first, but we obviously try and get them to a medical facility as soon as we possibly can. Safety tips from driving. Hijacking's rife in our country. It's happening every day. I remember when I started in this industry in 2004, 2005, hijackings was something, and I come here from little old Port Elizabeth, but I remember hijackings was something you only saw on carte blanche on a Sunday. Now it's rife. It's rife everywhere, small towns, big cities, wherever it's happening. So always make sure that you keep your vehicle and your window doors locked. We're still not doing that. We're driving around with our cell phone between our legs. They're easily coming in through the window, grabbing cell phones. Always know the environment around your home and workplace so that if you see something that's looking out of kilter, you can react. Because remember, these guys aren't just going to go, okay, we'll hijack that one. They do their homework. They watch, and very often, probably over 90% of our hijackings happen either at work or at home. And why? Because we let our guards down. It's easy when you get home. It's the kids and the dogs and everybody. And when you get to work, it's your staff and it's everybody moving around, and you let your guard down, and that's when you're an easy target. So those are the places you must watch out. Adjust your mirrors for optimal all round. Now, you giggle about that because you think, okay, that's obvious. But let me tell you, especially ladies, are you listening? I do numerous ladies workshops, and the one day it was a hijacking workshop, and I invited everybody outside, and I got into a lady's car and I looked into the right mirror and I could see myself, and I looked into the left mirror and I could see myself, and I looked into the rear view and I could see myself, and I said, you do your makeup in the car? And she was like, yeah, how did you know? And I was like, it's there for a reason. We want to see anybody approaching. Make sure that you keep your 5-meter distance so that if you are in trouble, you can maneuver your car out. Keep looking in your mirror to see if anybody is approaching. They usually approach from the backside area, so you need to see if somebody's coming. Know your routes to your nearest police station, and this is vital, so that if you are in a situation, you're driving, you're now feeling that somebody's following you, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to turn left 4 times. If that car stays behind you, you go straight to the nearest police station. So it's important that you know where your nearest police stations are and also where you're going. You don't want to have to stop and ask somebody, because the minute you stop and open your window or have to get out of your car, you are vulnerable. So know where you're going at all times. And as I said, your routes to your nearest police station. Avoid driving late at night or early in the morning where possible. It's not really possible in our industries because we all work strange shifts. But that's, once again, I mean, even carpooling with fellow staff, it puts you in a safer space than rather you driving by yourself. If you have to drive by yourself, you have to drive by yourself. But I mean, we need to also take the precautions of knowing what we need to do at the end of the day to ensure that we are safe. So just some last words. I think for me, the most important thing or message that I'm trying to get across to everybody today is that we need to take accountability for our personal security. We can't expect the SAPS or the security companies or alone to look after us. We need to play our part. We need to report suspicious movement. We need to be aware. I'm telling you, if we just do the basics, and not create opportunity, we're going to chase all of these criminals back to Australia, to where all the people ran away from, and they can go and hunt over there. But we need to play our part. We need to make sure we have the right measures in place. We have the right attitude. We go back to basics and we put these cell phones away, and we just don't create opportunity. We trust our sixth sense, that feeling we get, because that sixth sense is going to save your life, that we're aware of our surroundings at all times, and that we look after each other as well. The days of us looking the other way when something's happening to someone and thinking, oh goodness, I'm so glad it's not me, it's over. Because you must remember that that person could be your daughter, your son, your mother, your brother. We need to stand together as a country, as a community. Women need to stand together, because we are being victimized. And in our industries where we work a lot with our community and our people out there, we need to stand together. Women cannot at any stage be in competition with each other anymore, because they seem to do that. We seem to always have something to say about each other's hair and each other's shoes. But you know what? We as women, we're doctors now, we chase criminals, we fly planes, we do all these things. We're quite incredible, and we birth children at the same time. But as a sisterhood, we would be unstoppable, because women need to just stand together. That's going to bring our strength. And I mean, even our gentlemen out there are being attacked left, right, and center. So just remember, at the end of the day, it's your security and you are worth it. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Bernadette. That was really great. Can you perhaps, before I go to the questions, can you tell us a bit more about some of the recommended security features that you would recommend for a doctor's consultation room and exam room. You touched on the panic button.
Yes.
What are the other security features that you think a doctor should have? And then also, can you also talk about when we are driving to and from work and you meet unmarked police or security guards, how should we, security cars, how should we respond to that?
Thanks. No problem. I think, first of all, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's very important to be able to secure your rooms, first of all, especially for the coming and the going. So to have an adequate alarm system, to have CCTV that you can monitor on your phone so that you can see if there's anybody lurking around the building before you enter or before you leave. I mean, nowadays, technology is incredible, and you can have that app on your phone and see exactly who's moving around the building before you leave or enter. The panic buttons is a must. Not just fixed panic buttons, but also remote panic buttons, especially for the staff, that they can wear under their uniform. If something happens, they're able to push the panic button and react. I think that's vital at the end of the day as well. Obviously, as I also mentioned, a secure front door and gate to isolate whoever is coming in from the people on the inside so that you can see who's on the inside. Driving, the question, if you're driving and somebody pulls you over in an unmarked vehicle, and I have sat with SAPS and I've asked them this question, you have the right to show them to follow you and drive to your nearest police station. If that police officer causes any havoc or questions your response, if you do that, then you have the right to go to the station commissioner and tell that commissioner your side of the story. We are not in a position right now to just pull off for unmarked vehicles, because we see what's happening across our country, and it's a safety measure. You didn't just drive off, you showed him, come with, even through the window, but you carry on driving, you go to the nearest police station.
Great, thank you. You also mentioned that the risky times is when we open or we close the practice. So would it be advisable to get your existing security company to come and assist you during those times? What are your thoughts with regards to that?
Absolutely. If you've got a guard on site, I would organize that the guard is with you when you're opening or closing. If you've got a security company that has the ability, Fidelity ADT obviously does what we need to do is call a meet and greet. So you get your security company will meet you at the door, make sure that you enter safely. So that's an option. And then have that remote panic, either panic on your cell or remote panic, so that maybe carry it in your car. Nowadays, everybody's using the cell panic so that you don't have to get inside first to push a panic. You have one on the outside and you're able to then do what you need to do.
Thank you so much. There are two questions in the chat related to one another. The first one is about East London in Eastern Cape. I hope you can be able to assist us. Yes. Dr. Milind Shitnis, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, is asking if you expect crime, armed robberies at doctors' surgeries to decrease. Is it really likely to decrease after the new administration? And then linked to that question is, why do you think armed robberies at doctors' surgeries are increasing at an alarming rate in East London? Are you able to answer that, Bernadette?
Yes, absolutely. We're seeing armed robberies increasing on a business level across all spectrums right now. The biggest reason it's increasing is the fact that the loot is so much better. So we're even seeing armed robberies in churches at the moment. So there's a condensed amount of people, they're behind closed doors. So as soon as you gain entry, you can take everybody, and this is what they do. They'll take everybody's cell phones. They'll take whatever cash is in the rooms. They will obviously take expensive drugs and also laptops and those types of things. And they want to get in and out as soon as possible, but very often they will stay in there for about an hour and lock everybody in there in a room. And very often we get a notification only after the robbery has taken place and somebody's pushed the panic button. I don't foresee armed robberies decreasing unless we take a stance and start making it more difficult for these guys to actually commit these robberies. Right now, I can tell you overall, I've seen a massive increase of armed robberies, especially in East London, which falls under my jurisdiction, business robberies. So it's going to come back to us as business owners to take the correct steps to safeguard ourselves. It's not going to go away unless we start making it difficult for these guys, unfortunately.
Thank you very much. And then what is the feeling around paying protection money for your practice? So maybe for some of us who don't know what protection money is, could you assist to just maybe clarify for us what protection money is, and then what is your feeling around paying that
So
versus security protection?
Yes, we get a lot of those questions, especially in our more rural areas. And even in our inner city hubs, you know, where there's groups of people that say, we will make sure nothing happens to you if you pay us protection money. But we're setting a precedent. We're actually just making the whole scenario worse and worse and worse. The best way to do it is to have a proper, reputable security company that you can rely on, that has been polygraph tested, because very often you miss a month, then you have a break-in immediately. So now you've started a precedent, remember that, and by opening yourself up to that, you could in the long run actually put yourself in danger. And these guys are getting away with it because shop owners and people are afraid, but we wouldn't be afraid if we followed the correct steps and done things the correct way. We shouldn't start, it becomes like a mafia scenario, and you end up having turf wars, and these guys end up shooting each other, and we're just making it worse at the end of the day. So go the reputable way, get a reputable security company, because that's the right way to go.
Great. Another question from Dr. Peter Samuels. If you wouldn't mind, please elaborating more on the hostage or kidnapping situations becoming more common with doctors, particularly the specialists. Our concerns are how to act in that situation and what our families or staff should do, or perhaps the types of insurance we may need to look at.
So it's imperative, as I mentioned earlier, that you have a plan as a group of people in your practice, with your staff, where you actually have a conversation and you say, if this happens, what are we going to do? And have the conversation more than often, so that everybody's brains start working towards what are we going to do? What is our plan? What is our safe word? If you are in a situation like that and there are weapons involved, as I mentioned earlier, there's really not much you can do. You don't want to escalate the whole issue and somebody gets killed or shot. So the most important thing in a situation like that is firstly to stay calm, as I mentioned, stay extremely calm, and let them just take what they want. Because everything can be replaced, but your life cannot be replaced. And it's really, I mean, I've seen a situation escalating really quickly when people are panicking and starting to kind of scream or whatever, because they're attracting attention, and that's when people start getting hurt. They don't want any attention. They don't want people to hear people screaming. So your chances of being hurt, shot, stabbed increases the minute you lose your cool. And that's why it's so important from your side and your staff side to, first of all, the more you talk about it and the more you have a plan, the more confident you're going to be in a situation that happens in this way. But ultimately, the first choice is to put the specific steps in place to avoid it from happening in the first place. And that's what we keep forgetting. We always talk about when you're in the situation, but we must talk about more to avoid the situation at the end of the day.
No, we hear you. The prevention part is quite critical. And I think I like the fact that you said most of the time the receptionist, just opens the door. We don't even have like a gate that allows that person to see who it is who's coming in and out. And that is so true for most of our practices. The door is wide open and we are very trusting. Another question is, considering the fact that there are so many syndicates that are at play, So what must we look out for as medical doctors when a person walks into our rooms? What are some of the things that we should observe, without, of course, making it obvious to them that we are definitely checking them out?
Yeah, so that's also a question I get quite a lot. But if you look on average, these syndicates, the armed robbery gangs, they usually come in a group of 4, maybe 5, and they will case a place for up to 2 weeks on average in our country before they hit. So very often after a robbery, staff would say to me they've seen this car in the road the last few days, or they've seen that person walk up and down, but then they didn't report it, and that goes back to the I should have, could have, would have again. But they're not just going to stop at a place and hit it. They're going to do their homework. They're going to see who's coming in and out. They're going to look what times the openings and the closings are. They're going to see how easy it is to get into the place. They'll send somebody in, and you'll see a person come in, and the first thing they'll do is they'll start looking around to see if they can see cameras, if they can see alarm equipment. And with every robbery, the first initial person always told me that this person made me feel uncomfortable, because and they would ask strange questions. How many doctors are here? How many staff is here? So that's where it goes back to trusting your instinct, because that person will let you know that they're not there for the right reasons. And that is when you should react. You should, at that moment, already push your panic button, or at that moment say the safe word, and everybody comes out of the offices and makes that person feel uncomfortable, or you follow them outside and make sure that they notice you've watched their car and you can see them. So that's how we change those basic things. But what we're doing is we're also busy. The client comes in, asks a few strange questions, and we think in the back of our mind, yeah, that guy asked strange questions. But we should react on that already. Don't wait for something to happen. But they do case up to 2 weeks. And it's also important to understand that these armed robbers aren't necessarily any specific race or any specific. I mean, I had an armed robbery over the last few years where the getaway car was driven by a woman, okay? Because women drive better, apparently, than men do. I just had to throw that in there. I'm kidding. But what I'm saying is these guys don't come with something saying, I'm a robber. We must be mindful of that. Listen to what they say, look at their body language, and that's where that mindfulness comes from.
Great. There's a lot of discussions about, the 2 convictions that Dr. Mhlengi mentioned. I think more the community and us as professionals are so despondent and so, and frustrated by the fact that there is such a low conviction rate. Yeah. So what on our side can we do as an association? I know you interact a lot with SAPS. So yes. What can be done to try and put more pressure so that when cases are reported, then the convictions follow that?
Yes.
Would you be able to give us any info on that?
I can, yes, I can. I think with convictions, your best convictions happen when there is incredible proof of the incident happening. And that's where we play a part in it. I mean, we should, if you had a armed robbery, everybody should be putting in statements. You should be putting pressure on the SAPS to make sure that the fingerprints get done. We should claim that, which we don't. We just go, the fingerprints are probably never going to happen. They're not even going to come out. But we have the right as citizens to demand that service and to make sure that that case is built from the evidence, because evidence, that's what it's about. And stay on that detective's case about it. You know what I'm saying? Make sure your case is being investigated properly. But we kind of just we have this attitude of, oh well, nothing's going to happen about it. But we shouldn't have that attitude. We should be part of the case. This happened to you. You should be making sure that all the relative steps are happening. And I know it's not your job, but I mean, we do not take enough ownership from our side either to ensure that we get the service sometimes from the SAPS that we might deserve. I even have situations where I have people that have gone through something and they tell me, that they were told to not even bother opening a case. I mean, we can't live like that. We need to take our power back as a community as well.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask you the very last question in the last minute. It's first a statement, then a question. They are related, from Dr. Samantha Smith and from Dr. Nozipho Matimbi. Dr. Smith says, thank you for this informative session. I work in the public sector in a TB hospital. Many of our clients are criminals out on bail and have a previous criminal history. We only have unarmed security that are mostly female on site. The building is remote and we have no police patrolling the premises. My relatives always laugh when I say I always wear tights under my pants and dresses because I fear being sexually assaulted. We need to remain vigilant. SAPS needs to provide more support in terms of security in the public sector. And then related to that, from Dr. Matimbi, the question is, any suggestions on what doctors working in the state can do to get buy-in from the employer to take security more seriously or to take more measures to improve the state facility safety?
Yeah, I work a lot, obviously, on the public sector and do quite a lot of workshops. So I've had first-hand experience with the staff and their frustrations. I think, first of all, communications with the powers that be is vital. Don't just accept an environment, because at the end of the day, we all have the right to be safe in our working environment. We all know that. And don't just accept that that is how it is. But we need to communicate that. We need to obviously make sure that steps are taken and hold people accountable for that, because at the end of the day, it is still your safety. And it is, the employer needs to make sure that his staff members are safe and secure. So we have the right to demand that, but it also should be done through proper communication, backed up by proper evidence of situations happening within that space.
Thank you very much. Benedict, thank you for your time. Mhlengi, thank you for your time. Some of the taglines that I can say I gleaned from your presentations is, number one, being mindful. We are constantly living in our heads. We must see the danger before it lets up on us. You must stand with your back against the wall. I didn't know that part. You told us about the golden hour, which is very important for us, to be known where we are, so that should we not be at the place where we are, then somebody's looking for us. Know the layout of your rooms. Know for you and your patient to be able to get out in case of danger. Pencil skirts and high heels. I didn't know one day those could be a danger to a female doctor, right? And the fact that police stations, the resources are allocated according to the statistics that we report. So let us be encouraged. You get one chance, colleagues, to escape in a dangerous situation. And when driving, always make sure that the vehicle behind you is about 5 meters distance, and always turn left 4 times. Wow. Thank you so much, Benedict. Those were such amazing lessons, and I think that we really learned a lot as doctors. Colleagues, I hope that we are less naive and we are more aware now. We know what to do. Benedict's details are on the screen right now, should you wish to ask her more questions on safety. You also heard that she does workshops. So if you're interested in doing workshops, Benedict will be more than able to assist you where that is concerned. From the South African Medical Association, we continue to advocate for you doctors. So if there are any other topics that you would like us to deal with, please feel free to email us. Colleagues, enjoy your week. All the best with the voting. Good evening. Thank you.